everyone. I'm Brock Vieira, Dev Team MBS Media, and welcome to another episode of The Hot Seat. Thank you for joining me for this very impromptu episode. Sorry for the late notice, boss, if I gave you any notice at all. But wanted this quick show because my boy Steve Rogers hit me up, and he said that he wanted to talk Minnesota Vikings, and I couldn't think of a better show or a better moment to talk about them. So today we're going to be talking about, of course, the Minnesota Vikings going into this year's NFL Draft. They're going to talk strategy, potential trades, predictions, who could be the future face of the franchise at the quarterback position. Of course, right now, all they have is Sam Darnold and Nick Mullins, so it's not too great of a situation. We'll be joined by contributor Steve Rogers shortly. Now, before we go on, I just want to review the past two seasons for the Minnesota Vikings. New head coach, new GM. First year, they jump out of the gate and they're hot. They win the division. They win a bunch of really close games. They had that incredible game up in Buffalo where Justin Jefferson had that one-handed catch on fourth down. Everything seemed to be going in the right direction. They make the playoffs. They lose in a shocking upset to the New York Giants, and quite frankly, they haven't been the same since. Kirk Cousins is no longer there. Justin Jefferson needs to get extended. There's a lot of question marks in the air, and hopefully our guy will be able to answer them. Welcome to the show, Mr. Steve Rogers. Steve,
How's
how are you
going,
doing
Brock?
today?
Thanks for having me. How's it going, guys out there? Shout out.
Yes. Well, Steve, I already kind of gave a brief background of the Vikings' past two seasons under this new administration. What has been your thoughts so far on your Minnesota Vikings?
They've tried to kind of be on a quick turnaround on the fly on a rebuild, switching from the Zimmer or organization era into the Kevin O'Connell, and it has been a night and day transformation almost immediately and almost seamlessly to one regime to the next, and the culture change and the shift was night and day. It seemed to just it seemed as if April showers had brought on the May flowers, so to speak, that everything just blossomed once KOC got there, right? And they had an incredible season, a great run, like you said, a crazy comeback in Buffalo, and then the biggest comeback in history of the NFL against the Colts, 33-0 or something. So all signs are pointing in the right directions. And then, like you said, we have came to a stalemate with Kirk Cousins and his money. And Kirk Cousins decided when he had a chance at the crossroads of choosing whether or not he wanted to play at a championship caliber roster team with a team friendly deal or go cash first Kirk. And he chose to go towards becoming half a billionaire out of the NFL's pocket. So no longer Kirk Cousins here in Minnesota, and we move on to the next chapter. And GM Kwefi Adozumensah is stocking up some first-round caliber draft bullets to fire away at getting a future franchise quarterback. I'm assured that that's what they will be doing in this draft.
Yeah, and let's talk about the GM for a second. Kwesi, and I apologize. I cannot pronounce his last name. Could you say it for us again?
Kwesi Adofo-Mensah.
Kwefi Adofo-Mensah. Yeah, he has had a very interesting tenure as Minnesota Vikings GM. We had that first year, of course, and then he started stripping the team of some of his old veterans. Got kind of capped off by Dalvin Cook's exit, and then we had this kind of offseason. Give us your grade on him so far.
Well, I'm right now. I guess I'm kind of somewhere between maybe a B minus B and a C plus, because I'm kind of still not entirely sure why I understand money is kind of an issue but Danielle Hunter was one of his best seasons ever, and he was openly saying he was wanting to be a Viking for his entire career. It's interesting that some Vikings players seem to usher those sentiments and get to stay, a la Harrison Smith in the season 13 or 14, and the most don't. And now Danielle Hunter has a chance to probably win a Super Bowl with the Houston Texans. So I think that's the level of talent that he is and was and still can be. So I think we lost out there, but we'll see what we do here with the future in the draft. And we don't have a whole lot of mid-round draft capital at the moment, which also I'm kind of interested to see how they make that work, because no second or third round picks. So we're going from the first round to the fourth, and that just seems kind of barren in the draft department usually, especially with all the years of Rick Spielman trading back and accumulating picks on picks on picks. So It's interesting to be where we are at the moment, but I'm also optimistic to see what we're going to do with what we have, and so far it kind of looks like he might have a plan that I mean, obviously they're an organization, they're in charge, and they've got all their war rooms, and they know what they're doing more than most of the rest of us do. We're all speculating at this point, but I'm starting to come around to believe they must know what they're doing and must have a really good plan to be this really kind of emptying their cupboards really of most of their talent.
That's fair. And so that's going to prove that is this upcoming NFL draft. I want to jump into that real quick. So, of course, the Minnesota Vikings have 9 picks coming up. They have picks 11 and 23 in the first round, and then that immediately is followed by 108. There's potential for a trade up for a quarterback. They can stick where they are and get 2 very high quality picks. Let's talk about what do you believe is going to happen for the Minnesota Vikings? What do you predict that they're going to do?
Um, well, and there's been so much talk about how many different things and scenarios are in play and at play, and I'd kind of like to touch on some of them. There's been talk about Justin Jefferson and his lack of contract, or whether there is a new contract. So it is being reported that last year the Vikings did offer him a very lucrative contract. The terms haven't been exactly exposed, but it was near the top three in played players in all positions, supposedly. So if we're talking that kind of break the bank money, and Justin Jefferson shrugged his shoulders at it, it's interesting to see what number actually would get him to sign down the dotted line. And now also he was so supportive of Kirk Cousins was his quarterback. If that now obviously can't be the case, who does he want to be his quarterback, and how much are the Vikings willing to let his opinion matter to who is the next quarterback? I've also heard that now this year there is a handshake agreed upon new contract. Again, no terms have been disclosed and no signatures have been discussed. So, what is the holdup in Justin Jefferson signing and not signing? Is it because he's waiting to see, do the Vikings listen to who he has asked for to be drafted? And who is it who he's asking for to be drafted? There's also a lot of talk that if Justin is asking for too much money, then he must be traded. And I'm dumbfounded at how the lack of value in what people are saying Justin Jefferson himself is worth, and how we would have to give up picks, including him, to get where we want him. Justin Jefferson himself is a first round pick, if not an additional first round pick or second round pick. So I don't see any scenario where the Vikings are trading him for any less than the farm. So that's just completely not happening. I believe that the Vikings and Justin Jefferson do indeed have a deal worked out, and they indeed are going to be just fine together, and there's no divorce coming, and there's no need to worry about a trade. I don't know what the figure is, but I know that it's going to have to be for sure the top wide receiver money. So if Tyreek Hill is the top in 30 something, I'm sure Justin Jefferson is going to be no less than at least 35 to 38, because he's going to break the bank, as he has been saying. So I've got Justin Jefferson staying in Minnesota, and I also do believe that Minnesota is going to pick up the phone and be busy, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is going to work a trade up, because Las Vegas helped Minnesota in that, and Kwesi last week by releasing the over-under odds for the NFL season, and gave Minnesota Vikings a lowly 6.5 wins on the year. So all Kwesi has to do is sit there and make his phone calls. Hey, look, Las Vegas already says we're not going to win more than 6 games. We only have Sam Darnold, who is only won 5 games in a single year ever in his career. We're tanking this thing to the toilet, and next year's first round pick is going to be in the top 3. So here's our 11 and next year's first round, and we'll be moving up to whatever we need to get whatever quarterback we need to get that KOC and Justin Jefferson has approved upon. That is the future that I see taking place. And Minnesota will keep, that they've been talking about, the 23rd pick and take the best available defensive or offensive line position available.
Okay. So are there any players in particular that you could see Minnesota selecting to fill these needs?
Um, not a whole lot. I haven't done a whole lot of working outside of the quarterback room. I'm obviously the Vikings are not sharing their list, but I am pretty sure their list. I mean, obviously Caleb Williams, we all know, is going number one to Chicago, so no one has Caleb Williams on their list other than Chicago at this point. Which I'm not fully sold on either, as Caleb Williams being the surefire thing that everyone is so sold on. He's actually the shortest of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks coming out, and they're talking about Bo Nix not being tall enough. Bo Nix is taller than Caleb. Anyway, so I think the quarterbacks that are on the Vikings list are Jaden Daniels, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, and either Bo Nix or Penix, because I don't think the Vikings have a line just like they did with Kirk Cousins. They're not going to overpay to get up in the draft to get the guy. So they've already worked out contingencies of whether they're comfortable with either Bo Nix or Michael Penix at their 11 or 23 pick that they have to work with. That's the comfortability and flexibility the Vikings have at this point. They have plans upon plans with backup plans and contingencies for every scenario possible right now. So I really see the Vikings, honestly, as the most powerful position in the draft to do what they need to do to get where they want to be.
Now you make an incredible point with that, and I want to kind of focus on that quarterback battle, especially the Knicks versus Penix, because we did Donovan James, Bill Carroll, who's a Team MBS Media, and a whole bunch of us did a mock draft yesterday, full 7 round, and we saw that Denver actually traded back up in the mid-20s to go and take Bo Nix, right?
Okay,
So considering Minnesota has the 23rd overall pick, if it does come down to Nix versus Penix, who are you taking?
I think between those two, I'm slightly leaning a little bit more towards Bo Nix. Just because a little bit of the accuracy and a little less of the possible injury issue. So that just there's an injury concern is just too much to be not pay attention to and use a first round draft pick on someone who might not make it to year 3.
Okay. So I gotta admit, I don't know how if I can agree with that. The reason why is because I saw Bo Nix play live here in Vegas at the big Pac-12 championship game, and he looked incredibly sloppy, especially on routine throws. However, there's that upside because at the end of the game, I believe Oregon was down by 14. He zipped a ball like passing 3 defenders right into his receiver's hands and took it right up for a touchdown. So it's so hard to evaluate him because he can be so sloppy at some times and yet so magical at others. Where I feel like Michael Penix is more consistent. Why do you like that style of sometimes bad, sometimes good over always medium?
It's again, it's hard to say, and there's an age difference too as well that goes between these two guys. And they're both really talented. And again, there's nothing to say that Penix can't have or won't have a great NFL career, and he might just be better than Bo Nix. I'm just again, it's mostly I'm just concerned about the injury history and the back-to-back knees. He's got a bad shoulder. I mean, it just the list goes on, and the NFL is only going to get rougher. Yeah, they're trying to protect quarterbacks, but I mean, the hits are still out there, and you still got to be. Yeah, some say you can get away with this the statue quarterback style. I don't really believe that. I think you have to have not necessarily a Michael Vick, but you've got to have a mobile, move around, reset the pocket, and reset his feet, shuffle the pocket, and make things happen with his feet and legs as much as just his arm as anything, like a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, that type of thing, Lamar Jackson. The list goes on. That's the modern NFL. So I don't know that not being able to be mobile in the NFL is going to translate as much as people think it is. But also, I also believe that Minnesota, for whoever quarterback hits here, is the perfect landing situation for them to not be a bust. So whoever does come to Minnesota is landing in the best situation. They got multiple wide receivers. They got T.J. Hawkinson. They've got most of an offensive line. And they've got KOC, who's a former quarterback, who's a quarterback guru, whisperer. Their play scheme and calling is all fit to nurture a young quarterback or any quarterback. So this organization is obviously, honestly, the place where all of these quarterbacks ought to be calling their agent, going, "Get me to Minnesota, please, somehow." Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a multitude of good points. This quarterback discussion has just got me so excited because obviously we're dealing with a very, I don't even know what the right way to put it, because I
It's a
feel like
once
the
in a
way,
generational draft with this much talent involved, and I don't think that there are more than 2 busts out of the top 6 quarterbacks, which is also going to break trends. So,
yeah, no, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with you, but I also have massive concerns with virtually every quarterback in the top six as well.
exactly. At the
So
same time, they could almost all be bust, and they could almost all be all pro.
yeah, that-
It's so wild.
it's so magical, honestly. With all that being said, we're another quarterback that's being mentioned with the Minnesota Vikings is JJ McCarthy, right? In that scenario, Minnesota would have to trade up for him, which would mean trading obviously 11
At
and
this point,
23.
due to all of the market media hoopla and raise, but yeah.
I would like to say in the mock draft, McCarthy did go to the Giants at 6. So just keep that in mind. With that being said,
That
if
makes
the
things a
Vikings,
lot. That makes things really. Was that Tennessee that just did that the last couple of years back, drafting quarterbacks back to back that left their quarterback room full of, well, who's the starter and who are you, and Tannehill and like. So the Giants have Daniel Jones that they just re-signed, who is still a young quarterback on his second deal, recovering from an ACL. It would make a murky mess there for them to go and draft it. It would make the Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love era in New York.
maybe, but I think all reports are stating that um what was it? Sorry. I think all things are stating that they're done with Daniel Jones. Like,
Yep.
so I don't really see that. Also, we got some comments on here. Some love from the Mass Podcast. You were on it the first episode. Steve with the purple Viking shirt. Christy, who will be on my show later with Thomas Brown off the dome. Check that out. 10 a.m. West Coast time, 1 p.m. East Coast time. What pick y'all have in the first again? So we haven't gotten to that yet. Chris will get to that right after the JJ conversation. So if the Vikings trade up for JJ, would you consider that worth it? And what would be your evaluation if he was drafted to the Vikings?
So I'm glad you brought this up, because this was actually one of my other points I was hoping to get to, was the Minnesota Vikings and JJ McCarthy love fest marriage conversation far too in advance of the draft even happening. I was completely opposed when it first started happening and started snowballing. And then actually, as the momentum and steam kept rolling, I actually had to open my eyes to maybe this is an actual thing that possibly is going to happen. So I might have to get used to the idea of who JJ is. So I went and did my own deep dive and research and discovered that actually JJ McCarthy, in my opinion, is the most solid lock as the best quarterback in this draft. His original high school in Illinois was a 2-time high school state champion. Then in the COVID year, still in high school, the young man left home and went to another state, to Florida, and won not another high school title, but a national high school title. And then went to Michigan and has done nothing but win Big Ten after Big Ten, and then capped it off with finally his national title that he was chasing and was eluded with a perfect season. No, everyone is underrating just how good this guy is and playing in whatever system. Okay, well, guess what? That's what everyone in the NFL wants, is a guy who's willing to play in their system. So why is everyone having such a weird discussion of whether or not JJ can translate to the NFL? He's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL. Watch.
Wow. Wow. Some very strong words from Steve Rogers in support of Michigan's JJ McCarthy. That man will be very excited if Minnesota did a
And
draft
again,
day
that
trade.
opinion has totally flipped in the last 10 days. I was completely against JJ. I didn't think he was. I thought it was all system based and that it was just a flash in the pan. I didn't have my knowledge. I didn't have my history. He has the Tom Brady, Joe Montana winner's moxie mentality.
Wow. That is a very courageous statement said today. I guess only time will tell. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about draft strategy for Minnesota and, of course, Steve's visions for the future. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Hot Seat. Team MBS Media, of course, the guys that sponsor this show, where you can get your best in sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. Team MBS Media, check it out. While I'm back with Mr. Steve Rogers, we are talking Minnesota Vikings football. We just got done with his quarterback analysis. I think we're all in agreement. Whether they trade up or they use one of their picks, they will be getting a quarterback in the first round in this draft. Steve likes Bo Nix over Michael Penix Jr., but the major surprise, he thinks J.J. McCarthy will be not only the best quarterback in this draft, but will become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Rewind a little bit, check out his reasons for that. Moving forward, let's put you in the GM seat. I want to talk about strategy. How do you approach this draft with this quarterback situation? You trade up, you wait. What are you looking for as your keys to decide on what you want to do? Talk us through it.
Well, again, this is where we get to really have fun and use our imagination. So imagine, if you will, Jim Harbaugh just became the coach of the San Diego Chargers. I believe your team, San Diego.
Yeah, they're in Los Angeles, but you know.
And they Los Angeles. That's right. Sorry, Los Angeles. They moved. And their wide receiver room is pretty much barren. They just signed J.K. Dobbins, who will improve their running room and their pass and play action game. But I wonder, Harbaugh is on record of saying that he is on a love affair with Justin Herbert. Is that love affair actually greater than his love for J.J. McCarthy?
Oh.
Because they have the 5th pick. They can, honestly, without doing anything at all, take his quarterback that he groomed from college right into the NFL.
Brother.
And then they can trade Justin Herbert for wide receiver assets that they need.
Brother. I know where this stems from. And this stems from the fact that you had Madden 21 or 20 with Justin Herbert's rookie year, and you would always trade him to the Vikings, and you'd win the Super Bowl every year. I get where it comes from, but oh my god, brother.
But with that aside, moving on from the Chargers and Harbaugh.
Yep.
We might still be in cahoots to trade into that 5th spot with Harbaugh. I'm not exactly sure how that plays out, but there have been talks that the Vikings could trade up into the 5th, Arizona, and even the Patriots, who now the Patriots are completely on board and on the record of openly saying, we're for sale at number 3. So between the 3rd and 4th and 5th pick, I'm pretty sure somewhere in that window is where we will find the Minnesota Vikings finding a landing zone for who they want to get in line to get their quarterback with.
That's fair. And of course, if they trade up, that quarterback, in Steve's opinion, is J.J. McCarthy. Unless you want to differ, you think they'll trade up for Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. or even Spencer Rattler?
Right. So I think that's also the line of delineation is you can trade up for J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. After that, you've got to stick and pick for Bo Nix or Michael Penix. I don't see a scenario that you can trade up for either one of them. Now there's great, like I said, they're the next tier, the second tier, whatever, as you grade out the quarterbacks. A lot of people are saying they're kind of closer to second round talent. I don't know if you're getting in 11 and 23 in the first round, if that's reaching too high or not, but For me, it's starting to feel like, especially if you trade up, that's reaching too far for those guys. So I think the trade up is for Daniels, May, or McCarthy. After that, it's stick and pick for whoever's left.
That's fair. And that will lead me to our final question before we move on. If the pick comes at 23, who is left in that top 6 quarterback discussion?
Hmm. That is an interesting scenario and question. And I've seen a couple of different mocks that have had Penix dropping that far. I'm sure it was really fake and floozy because I saw it on Facebook, but somehow Jaden Daniels fell to 11 at one point. I don't believe that at all. But anything can happen in this draft, and with all the other talent that's out there and the team needs that are out there, there could be a run on defensive talent, and someone could fall into the 11s off these quarterbacks. With especially with there's 4 wide receivers that are in the top. With there's some wide receiver needy teams that are out there. Just as much as the Giants might be done with Daniel Jones, maybe it's time to actually get him a wide receiver that can help him. I don't know. So and then there's that tight end Bowers. So there's so many different ways to go about how the draft can fall out and lay out, and especially early in this first round, it's so hard to try to calculate. But I really do think the Vikings are going to find a way to trade up with the 11 and future picks and keep that 23rd pick to get a secondary piece, probably for the defense, because there's more holes on the defense right now than there are on the offense. As much as we do need one more offensive line, or to re-sign Dalton Reisner, it'd really help me out. But outside of that, I don't know. And then you got that Rattler, and is that Joe Milton, who's also somewhere out there?
Kind of.
Yeah. So I mean, there's lots of quarterbacks out there. I even heard Paul Allen say something in a late round that I don't remember off the top of my head. I think his name starts with a CH, his last name, quarterback.
CH. There's nothing's coming to mind.
Chiminga or something. I don't know. Kaminga. Anyway, um, it's wide open, and I think it's really, we only need to pay attention to the top 6 guys right now. After that, it's not in Minnesota's vision because they don't have mid-round picks, and it's not really anything we need to worry about until at least Thursday or Friday next week. So I think the other round picks will figure themselves out, but we need to worry about the top 6 quarterback situation.
For sure. Well, Steve, before we move on to our last one, before we get there, where can people find you? Where can people find your work? And what are you doing right now?
I am Steve Rogers with TeamMBSmedia.com. You can find me on the Twitter at the real Mr. Rogers 814. I am on the TikTok on a similar name, and my work is all on TeamMBSmedia.com, covering sports and entertainment, hip hop culture, and some more TV stuff to come here, coming down the pipeline. I'm getting back on the bike after some layoff here and injuries, some surgery, and I'm back on my feet now and financially stable again, so I can get back in the grind and get back in the studio here.
Absolutely. We're happy to hear that you're doing better and that you are thriving. That's where you can find Mr. Steve Rogers. Steve, let's go to the last topic. Post this draft, what is the future of the Vikings in terms of the success and what they need to do to become a world champion?
What do the Vikings need to do to become world champion? Well, they need to fill more holes on the defense. They need to solidify pass coverage with their cornerback room. And they need to make sure that the offensive line is ready to support and protect whoever the future quarterback is going to be of the franchise, and keep Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison available and open for that quarterback to work with. That is the keys to getting a championship to Minnesota.
Fair enough. Well, you heard it here first, but Steve Rogers. Steve, thank you for joining us today. Check Steve Rogers out at Team MBS Media. For me, check me out once again, 10 a.m. West Coast time, 1 p.m. East Coast time, off the dome. Me, Thomas Brown, a special guest. It's going to be a lot of fun. And see you guys then. For Team MBS Media, I'm Brock Vieira. We'll see you guys later.